Hey guys, Coach KP, last module. What a wonderful journey we've been together in for the last 2 hours, 15 minutes or so. Thank you for staying with me. You know, one of the things that I'm going to tell you right now is it's not so much that this course is a course to me, even though I've referred to it as a course. I've referred to, my videos as modules. What's really important for me is the brotherhood that I am able to establish with you because of me putting myself out there. So in the course of learning about self-acceptance and whatever you're learning in some of these other courses that you may be taking, the bigger piece there is for you to pass this along to other brothers, sons, offsprings, whatever that may be, daughters, whoever that may be. Your spouse, your significant other, your partner, pass this self-acceptance knowledge that we have received on to others, on to the world, right? It's so important for our sons and daughters and our people that look up to us to grow up and to be able to show up in this world accepting 100% of who we are. Self-acceptance is a journey, okay? And, it must have struck oddly to most of you, if you're not as crazy as myself, here when I call myself your brother in the caption, right? When the video started. And I did that on purpose because it's also a journey for me, and I'm learning to becoming everybody's brother. Like, I love that about me is that I am inclusive of everyone, and I want to bring people together. I want to educate other brothers. I want to educate sisters when the context is there. I want to educate other people to see the light in me so they can see the light in themselves. About 6 to 7 years ago, if you asked me where my light was, I did not know it. So I could not own my light, and I could not own some of the darker sides of me and really bring it into consciousness where I was able to see myself for exactly who I am. Okay? I've been guilty, like most men, living with a mask on because that's the easier choice to fit into this template that the society has prescribed to us. And when we do that, what we are losing out on is vulnerability. Let me give you an example. When a relationship is not working for people, you go look for a relationship advice, and there's so many sources that claim to give you good relationship advice, and all they're saying is, okay, in this case you need to do this, in this case you need to do that, and you know what, you're flipping and flapping and trying to figure out what to do, what to say in a relationship scenario. Maybe your relationship with your significant other has gone south and you're stuck in these techniques, right? What these techniques are not allowing you to do is to see the mastery in the situation. How can you master the situation versus what technique to learn, right? So by accepting ourselves 100% and by being able to bring that vulnerable side of us, right, as men, by being able to express our emotions, our opinions, our thoughts without necessarily being threatening to the other party, that's something we really need to cultivate. And that's not easy to do because, again, I gave an example of somebody cutting us off in traffic. When somebody cuts us off in traffic, it's very easy for us to put that middle finger up. But in actuality, it's much harder for us to take a deep breath and let it go, right? But which one is a better choice in that situation? The choice in that situation is for us to take that deep breath. Vulnerability is a choice. Just like every other life choice, we choose to be vulnerable every second. It has to become a lifestyle for us. For me to show up to a bunch of strangers and for me to call myself your brother, imagine how much backlash I can get or hate I can receive on the internet, because I'm going to put this series of videos in many different instances to help other brothers grow in their journey. Imagine how much hate I'm opening myself up to, right? The reason I'm able to open myself up to that kind of a scenario is because I am choosing actively to be vulnerable with you guys, because this is what it's all about. This is where our journey sort of ends up becoming more than who we are, more than our journey. It ends up becoming a path that we pave for others. When we become vulnerable and when we are showing ourselves exactly who we are in our journey, other people that are around us feel empowered to do so. Okay, so it's important for me to emphasize that, because when we choose to be vulnerable, there's so many opportunities we are exposing ourselves to be hurt. And being hurt is only really possible when we have not decided which side we're on. When we have decided that we're on the side of being vulnerable, when we are in the side of being self-accepting, it's no guarantee that the outside world is going to see us in that light, right? So here's an interesting story about Buddha, and you could say the exact same thing about Christ, and a lot of these superhumans that have come into existence to teach us certain things in our journey. These beings, some would call them enlightened, some will call them superhuman, some would call them divine. These beings, they weren't seen as the divine or as superhuman by every single person out there, even though they were undoubtedly, at least from what we can see, with the amount of teachings that they have given us, if we were to follow it in the right way, obviously, there is a lot of material just based on the sheer amount of intellectual material. Forget about the divine portion, right? Just the amount of sheer literature that they have inspired. Forget about them even giving these teachings. The literature that they have inspired alone is enough for us to comment on their lives and say that these were amazing human beings. But how many people discredit that, right? So again, what I'm saying is, when you're embarking on this journey to becoming vulnerable, becoming self-accepting, it's no guarantee that the rest of the world is going to see us this way. As a matter of fact, if we were to refer to David Daida's book, The Way of the Superior Man, he actually says that your woman tests you like the world does, right? There's an inference there along those lines, where the more we grow, the more we claim to be, at least in our mind, who we think we are, the universe will send us a test. For example, we're walking in this self-acceptance journey, and we are thinking that, I took this course, okay, I'm more accepting of a situation. Lo and behold, a time will come where you look at yourself and you go, yeah, I was totally beating myself up. And in a very obvious scenario, right? And you know what? That's okay. When we are choosing to be vulnerable, it's okay for other people to continue doing what they've been doing. And it's important at that point for us to decide if this relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a relationship that you have with people outside of romantic relationships. Maybe it's work, maybe it's other extended family type of a deal. It's for you to calibrate how much you want to open up to them, because again, just because we are choosing to be vulnerable doesn't mean we have to constantly expose ourselves in every single relationship. It's not necessary. You could do that, and there will be a time in our journey when we are able to do that 100%. Okay, I want to make that point, that distinction clear. What I'm talking about is when you're starting out, there may be a time that you may need to be careful about how much vulnerability you are exercising and what is your audience, right? So if your audience is constantly judgy and is not resonating with your vulnerability, you can scale that back a little bit, at least until you get enough practice in, right? So this is where the concept of brotherhood, the tribe, right? Do you have a tribe where you can create vulnerable conversations without creating judgment, without creating these criticisms from people, right? Where is your zone that you're really comfortable in? Do you have a zone? If not, I recommend that you start reaching out to other people that are like-minded and create a sort of a brotherhood, and you can call it whatever you want to call it, a tribe, a pack, a group, a team. It could be any number of nouns you can use for that, but you gotta create that. You gotta create that for yourself so that you can practice being vulnerable in a non-judgmental scenario. And what happens when you're able to do that is the more you practice being vulnerable, the more life opens up doors for you. And you will also at that point figure out if you have been in a toxic relationship where your significant other, or if it's not a romantic relationship, if the person that you are in a relationship with is toxic. Because after you've been vulnerable with them a few times, you constantly see them judging you, you constantly see them not changing their behavior towards you. That's a data point for you to collect, right? That's a data point for you to collect, and at some point you have to say to yourself, am I in a healthy relationship? Because if you've been really trying to be communicative and you're trying to be vulnerable, and yet this other party that you're dealing with is not resonating with that, does not respond well to your vulnerabilities, and instead is judging you or making your life difficult, that's a real time when you need to sit down again with your pen and a pad and evaluate how important that relationship is for you. And it's so much better to leave that relationship than to shut yourself down and stop being vulnerable because you continually are getting beat up in this relationship in the way you are showing up as. Okay, that's an important piece for us to realize, is a toxic relationship is a waste of time. And there's this sunken cost fallacy where people think that, oh, I've been with this person 8 years, let me just suck it up and deal with it, right? When your self-esteem is being chipped minute to minute to minute by this person, by the way they are showing up in this relationship, and you're looking to change your life, there's going to be a real scenario for you to choose at that point. Are you going to continue being in this relationship and cause this drama unfolding, and every single time you turn around it's the same scenario? Do you want that? If you want that, that's your conscious choice. More power to you. You need to stop complaining. If not, if you want to change the scenario and be in a more healthy situation in your life, then that's a point where you need to make that decision. If this relationship that does not honor your vulnerability and it makes you shut down from all of your feelings, that's a good indication that this relationship is not going to work out, and it's time to go. Again, this is not my suggestion that every relationship dynamic is different, and it's not my suggestion that you need to let go of a relationship or you need to cling on to a relationship. That's not what I'm saying. I'm empowering you to give you the thought process of exercising vulnerability, because a lot of women especially tend to get taught what a toxic relationship is, whereas a man doesn't necessarily get taught that through society. Even when I'm looking at social media and all the posts that are coming in, it's kind of almost portrays men as toxic, right? The whole, again, going back to the whole proliferation of this idea that masculinity is toxic, right? Again, so I want you to pay attention to these things, and don't take my words for gospel, right? I have my way of delivering things to you. Some of it is going to stick, some of it you're not going to resonate with, but I do recommend that you investigate what I've been talking about here in this video, about vulnerability, about toxic masculinity, about self-acceptance, right? Figure it out, because ultimately 7 billion people, 7 different ways of embracing ourselves. And when we're able to be completely vulnerable in our relationships, as we practice vulnerability, and as we walk in this path of self-acceptance, a lot of doors will open up, as I've said, and we will find so many amazing people that will support us in our journey to becoming our best version, right? So that's one thing that I wanted to talk about in this video. And I want to also say that there is 3 really big things you need to watch out for as you are developing as a person. These are self-doubt, self-hatred, and self-denial, right? I talk about these things in my book, Personal Development Simplified. Self-doubt is a constant lack of self-validation. What that does is it then sends us into this self-doubt mindset where we're constantly doubting our own thoughts, our own decisions, and we are constantly needing validation, and we're constantly checking with other people about what should make us happy versus really owning that decision, owning who we are, and saying that, what, I belong here, right? I belong to this world, and I am a person with desires just like every other person out there, and having these desires is not a bad thing, right? So self-doubt cripples people in a relationship. Self-hatred, not liking yourself, all right? When I was younger, I've been in a situation where I was in relationships and I didn't like myself very much, whether it was something physically or something that I would do behaviorally. I would constantly hate myself for these behaviors, and eventually those relationships turned toxic, and I turned them toxic now that I look back, because I was constantly neglecting, hating myself and neglecting my own needs. So it wasn't allowing me to show up as a whole person in a relationship. So self-doubt, self-hatred, and self-denial. Self-denial is where we deny ourselves what we are looking for from an emotion standpoint, and also from a relationship standpoint. What we are doing when we are denying ourselves is we are sacrificing and feeling resentful about our sacrifices. There's conscious compromises we need to make when we're in a relationship. It's conscious. We are saying, look, I'm willing to make this compromise because I care for this person. It's a conscious choice. But self-denial is kind of this subconscious pattern where we are making sacrifices and we're getting resentful, feeling resentful in our relationships for it. Self-doubt, self-hatred, and self-denial, these are crippling diseases. When we start to beat ourselves up, it's very important for us to try to identify if either one of these things is playing a part in that, right? Once we're able to identify it, once we're able to identify and bring to light some of these patterns, bring to conscious knowledge that we are operating out of self-denial, self-hatred, or self-doubt, then these patterns start to dissipate and eventually we'll be triumphant over this. That's the reason it's very important in your journey. Please, again, get a pen and a pad and write down all of your feelings, all of your emotions, even if it means a feeling that's coming up that says, I don't like myself. Write it down. If a feeling that comes up as you're watching these videos and you're doing the work, or you're going about your daily business in your life and these thoughts come up, whether it's bad or it's good, right? Sometimes really good feelings come through, like, oh, I feel really amazing. Write them down. Make a habit of journaling, because that's gonna take us a long way. We can be absolutely vulnerable in a journal, especially starting out. That's a great place to be in. I am so happy that I got to talk to you in the last few videos here, and I'm really rooting for you. I'm really sending you my love, so that you can really become apt in seeing some of these patterns within yourself, embracing yourself, good or bad, unconditionally. Once you start to love yourself and make that investment in yourself, that's gonna drive you to higher levels of success, internal success, where you start to feel so good about just living and being, that all of the success, whatever that is that you've been looking for, it's gonna naturally find its way to you. Of course, you'll need to put in the effort where effort is needed, but you won't be going about putting in the effort in a wrong, negative light where you're beating yourself up for every single thing that's happening or not happening around that. So guys, I am so psyched to have delivered my last video for this course, and I thank you again for being on this journey with me. I am rooting for your success. It's your brother, Coach KP. Peace.